Hi, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Laurel. I'm Laurel, and in this video, we're going to take a look at percents. When you're working with percent questions, you will at some point be able to put your values into this proportion, where percent goes over 100, and some number that I'm going to call amount goes over another number that I call base. Some textbooks will call it part and whole, but I avoid those terms because sometimes this number can be greater than this number, so it's hard to think of it as just part of that number. So I'm going to use the words amount and base, and I'm going to talk about which numbers are which. So when you've got a percent, that always goes over 100. So if I had this question, find 5% of 200, which could also be written, what is 5% of 200? Or could also be written, blank is 5% of 200. All three questions are asking the same thing. And in each of these questions, the percent is 5. So 5 goes over 100. The next number I want to talk about is the base. That's the out of number. When you want to find 5% of 200, 200 is your base. What is 5% of 200? Blank is 5% of 200. So it's out of 200, so that's our base. When the problem is written this way, you can think of the of number as being the base. It's out of that. And then the amount will be the other number. So in this case, we don't know it. And when it's written in either form 2 or form 3, it's kind of can be thought of as the is number, something out of the base. So in this case, our amount is unknown. That's our x. When you're dealing with percent problems, you're going to be asked to either find the percent, the amount, or the base. You're always going to know 100, but in order to find any of these values, you have to know the other two. And it's important to determine which is which. Once you have it set up in this form, then we can cross multiply to solve. 100 times x will equal 5 times 200. We solve for x by dividing both sides by 100. And our answer is 10. So for example, if we were finding how much tax needs to be paid on an item that's $200 and that tax is 5%, we could set it up this way, and the amount of tax that would need to be paid would be $10. Let's take a look at some more examples. In our first example, we have find 12% of 300. The percent goes over 100. So we've got 12, and we're going to put that over 100. It says find 12% of 300. Of is the base. So that goes in the denominator. The thing we don't know is the amount. What amount is 12% of 300? In order to solve this, we cross multiply. So we multiply 100 times x will equal, and we multiply this diagonal, 300 times 12 will be 3,600. In order to solve for x, we divide both sides by 100, so we'll get x equals 36. Next question is the same idea, except we have a decimal in our percent. And that's our percent, that's the value that goes over 100. Out of 20, that will be my base, and I'm finding what amount is 0.5% of 20, so that amount is my unknown. In order to solve this, I cross multiply, so 100 times x will equal 0.5 times 20, which is 10. Divide both sides by 100 to solve for x. 10 divided by 100 is 0.1. So 0.5% of 20 is 0.1. Let's take a look at some examples where we don't know the percent. So the next example, percent, we don't know. So our unknown will be over 100. 50 is blank percent of 75, so 75 will be our base. 50 is the amount. So 50 out of 75, we want to know what the percent is that. So if you wrote an exam and got 50 out of 75, you'd want to know what percent. In order to solve this, you do what's called cross multiplying, which you take this product. So 100 times 50 will be 5,000. Will equal this product, 75 times x. And then to solve for x, you divide both sides by 75. So x will equal 66.666, repeating, which we can round off to 66.7. So our answer is 66.7%. The next example is the same as this. It's just worded a little bit differently. We're finding the percent. That's our unknown. Our base is 250. It's out of that amount. The amount is 12.5. Once we have the equation set up, we cross multiply to solve. So 100 times 12.5 will be 1,250. Will equal 250 times x. Divide both sides by 250. And we get x equal to 5%. Let's do some examples where we don't know the amount. So in this example, we know the percent. So we put 25 over 100. Our base, the of number, we don't know, so that becomes our unknown. And 70 is our amount. So that goes in the numerator. An example of something like that is, let's say we had 70 students that didn't show up. And we know that 25% of the students didn't show up. So we want to know, how large is the class? How many students are there normally? If 70 is 25% of that total. Now we're going to cross multiply. So we're going to have 100 times 70, which would be 7,000, will equal 25 times x. Divide both sides by 25. And we get x equals 280. So if 70 is 25% of the total must be 280. This question is much the same, except we have decimal values. We know the percent, 10%. That number goes over 100. We don't know the of, the base, that's our unknown. Therefore, 0.4, which is the is number, is our amount. Cross multiply, 100 times 0.4 will be 40, equals 10 times x. Divide both sides by 10, and we get x equals 4. So 0.4 would be 10% of 4. Let's just try a few more. Our next example says what percent, so percent we don't know. That's going to be our unknown. And that percent always goes over 100. Is 45 of 30? So 30 is our base. Many people will make the mistake of putting 45 as the base because they think it has to be the larger amount. But you can have more than 100%. So pay attention to the way the question is worded. Don't always assume that the largest number goes in the denominator. 45 is our amount. So we're finding what percent 45 is out of 30. We're going to cross multiply 100 times 45. X times 30. Divide both sides by 30. And x will equal 150. So 45 is 150% of 30. Sometimes you're going to have fractions. 4 decimals, but you proceed the same way. The percent goes over 100. The base goes in the denominator, and the amount goes in the numerator. We could work with fractions, or we could change to decimals because that changes to an even decimal and so does that. So you could do that first. So it'll be 0.5 over 4.125. Then we cross multiply, so 100 times 0.5 will be 50. 4.125 times x. Divide both sides by 4.125. 50 divided by 4.125 will be 12.1 rounded off. So 1/2 is 12.1% of 4 1/8. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern. Percent always goes over 100. Amount always goes over the base. If the problem is written in this form, the is number is the amount, the of number is the base. However, in real life, your percent problems aren't going to be written in this form. They'll be written in the context of a lot of other words. So practice this first, understand where these numbers go, and then when you're ready, in the next video, we'll take a look at actual percent problems and determine how to set them up. Take care and see you then.